Dun, dun, dun. Well, big day night, everybody. It is July 17th. Still here. It is July 17th, 2026. Here for another HEX Bond market update. And we'll just kind of go through the numbers overall, take any questions, and move on with our day. It's a Friday. It's a nice Friday. All right. Well, today we're going to review the best opportunities as we see it. Remember, this is not financial advice. This is DeFi. You get to do what you want, do your own research, figure out your own curves, apply your knowledge to what other people are saying. Just because I talk about something doesn't mean it's the only thing to do, only right thing to do, etc. Just trying to share information, Chaz. You know what I'm saying. Joe, I see you out there, the TM. So currently Best Buy, most discounted is HTT 3000. Continues to offer the highest fixed APR, roughly 15%. It's crazy, the ROI on this getting high, and that's because this is liquidity on DeFi, and so product market. Excuse me. The calculation for doing the B2 as people sell and buy, you have vacillation in price, right? So it doesn't stick. The constant product formula applies. Okay. When there's more than, but there's been 558,000 HTTs minted over the last 24 hours on HTT 3000. And so this is a great example of, where somebody's doing something different than I might suggest. Johnny Cash, you may remember, had done a video where he had chosen the HTT 3000 to amplify specifically to take HEX off the market. And so we've had some people come along and follow that same process to take HEX off the market. Best premium, HTT 6000, currently the richest maturity relative to the benchmark, making it the strongest opportunity for minting and selling through amplified stake strategies. We'll show that. And about 200,000 of those were minted in the last 24 hours. HTT 7000, best liquidity, the deepest, with this little bump in price on HEX. The liquidity pools react because they follow HEX. All of them are priced in HEX. And so they follow along until somebody pushes a button and does something different. So 7,000 is a great place for execution of larger trades. And then as we move into the future, I would expect that 8,000 will take that over. Price is close to fair value, in my opinion, and trading activities continues on. Some of that is bolstered by the LPX pools, where there has been thousands of HTT transactions through LPX now, as well as ACTR transactions. Pretty crazy to watch that go on. HTT 7900, best total return at approximately 132.8% return on investment. Pretty big. I mean, it's still trading below the benchmark, right? Which is why that has a little bit of an extra umph with the return. And liquidity is limited, so the position size matters, right? So we'll talk about that in a few minutes because this question came in about 7,900s this morning that I can feature and go over. HTT 8000 featured Actuator Vault. It's increased overnight again to 14.1 million actuator deposited and about 345,000 minted over the last 24 hours. And so again, this is reinforcing this idea that the farms are coming in October. And people are positioning for that, get the inventory now, is what they're thinking. And they were getting their LPs set, etc. for that. That's pretty crazy to be doing it 3 months in advance. But hey, it is what it is, right? People getting ready. The yield curves are developing between 2880 all the way through 3000. Always one of these dogs want to bark. Hold on one second. And I'm back, crazy little critters. All right. And so, yeah. And so we'll continue to see the bottom of the curve becoming tradable. And we'll see if people continue that. The theory is I'll go all the way back to current date every 30 days. We'll see if they They put that in place. Eventually, though, we hit those dates, right? And so eventually we get to day 2880, and we'll, the curve will naturally occur. We'll see how many more people add additional HTTs and liquidity. There is a use case for that. Use case. All right. And so overall, again, we'll go look at some actual data here, but best buy HTT 3000, best premium HTT 6000, best liquidity HTT 7000, best total return HTT 7900. Now let's go look at some numbers. Let's go. We're going to look first. Let's look at HEX. Check this out. So this is the golden ratio. I always have this stupid ad should come up. All right, this is the golden ratio. Look at that. Look at that HEX, PHEX, man. Woo. It's above the 111-day moving average. We're right at it, fighting it today. Look at that pattern. Very sweet. Very sweet. I haven't seen something like this for a long time. Very organized. Nice increase. We do a quick measurement on this from the low, it's kind of like wild, up 77% from the wick low. It's pretty crazy. HEX is never coming back in price, right? That's what we're told. Up 37% from the pump over the last few days. 37%, so it's looking pretty good. So maybe this is it. I don't know. We look at Ethereum. Ethereum is approaching, nice W pattern here as well. It's approaching its 111-day moving average, which is the first cross I would expect to see before we start moving towards a bull market. Might be a little bit early for that. Bitcoin's looking like it's in accumulation, very flat. Sideways action for now. Let's take a look at the EHEX. EHEX is just following the curve down at the moment. You can see the effects of both Ethereum and PHEX on it. Somebody was asking about this today. Like, well, is it going to come back? Yeah, it can. Right? The community would have to do it, though. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's like everything else. Somebody's going to buy it. You got to buy it, stake it, lock it up, make it more scarce. Might be a long-term play, but hey, it's immutable, so it's not going anywhere. The contract itself is going to be out there, so it's not going anywhere. Let's see. Let's go. Hey, a comment yesterday that had come in, which was good. Somebody had been asking. I think it was not Shaz wasn't asking. Somebody else was asking about the Hedron. I forget who asked about it. Anyways, somebody's asking about minting Hedron. Yes, you can mint Hedron at any time from HSI stakes that are within the Actuator delegated protocol. So you have that ability. There's a button to do that. And so you can get your reward token of Hedron, go stake it, do whatever you're going to do with it. Right? Taking a look at the HEX yield curve, having to do with Actuator. Now remember, I've used my own numbers in here, so these are conservative. Somebody has a better model, the one that you'd like me to use, send it in. I'll check it out. But I've entered in what I think reasonable conservative guesses are for payouts over time. All right, and that develops this curve. And I have it set for amplification. So it's showing me what amplified stakes look like. And so from that data, the best opportunity for amplification is either the 6,000s or the 8,000s. But remember, the 8,000s only have about $6,000 worth of LP. So they move a little bit. In price, it doesn't take much to do that. In fact, it was much higher yesterday. And so somebody had come in and amplified 8,000s and the price came down. But the amplified staking there is 116% versus 102%. And on the 6,000s, it's 55% ROI versus 49%. So it's got a much deeper liquidity though. And so you could actually earn a little bit extra ROI on that, about 6%. By doing an amplification, as we've seen. And so the amplifications do continue. Now, some people will amplify, even if we look at like the 7,000s, right? Some people are willing to amplify to lock more HEX up, because what we can't measure is the effects of the scarcity, right? And this has been a topic that chaos has gone over a couple times. We can't really model that. We don't know if a whole bunch of people come in and amplify what the effects will be. So from a percentage dollar value, it could be very lucrative to do the amplification because you have the T-shares earlier before they get expensive in this 15-year cycle. So yeah, I guess what I'd say is use your own judgment what you want to do. If you want to take them off, some people say, well, listen, I'm willing to amplify and take a lower overall return on investment because the price is going to skyrocket. Right. So that's the thesis. All right. To do that. And then you do have opportunities like this. Look at that. That's the Quattro Cinco. There's a 93% just for ROI for swapping into it. And of course, we did say the 7,900 is the highest one at 132%. So a good question came in. It's rote, but it's a good question. Somebody said this morning, well, Crispy, what happens? Because this comes up a lot. Like this is in competition X, right? That's the concern, maybe. And so the question came is, what happens if people only just buy 7,900s? What would happen if they only bought 7,900s? No, they stopped buying X. Okay, well, let's think about this. If people only bought HTT 7,900s, what would happen? All right, so the 7,900s would move off the market. Price would go up, right, because people were buying it. And then somebody would be like, I'd like to sell some 7,900s. The price is pretty high. I'm going to amplify, right? So what do? They go mint 7,900s. How do they mint? They have to go get HEX. They put HEX into a stake. They go out likely to day 7,900, which is almost a Quattro Cinco, a little bit less than a Quattro Cinco. They turn around and mint that HTT 7,900. They take the inventory and they sell it on the market. Price comes back down. So that's my guess is what would happen with a 7,900. If people just were like, I'm just going to buy HTTs. I'm not going to do anything else. That's all I'm doing. All right, let's move on. You guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. All right, just checking the actuator dashboard itself. Yes, it's saying best total return 7,900, best premium 6,000, best for buying 3,000. So 3,000 is pretty heady. I mean, the idea that you get 25% return in about a year and a half is pretty good. So you have that. Looking at the farms currently are paying 28% for the 3,000s, about 40% for the 4,000s, 42% for the HTT 5,000s, 39.7, 40%, I guess you'd say, for HTT 6,000, and 32% for the 7,000s. And so these will change over time with the price of actuator, as well as the amount of LP that is staked in there, this farming. And we will also, we also are going to see this change where it's not quite a happening, but it's a 40% drop, I believe, in actuator being distributed after October. So this is the last little period of time where there's a very high, or at least a higher distribution of actuator per day. In October, what will end up happening is this HTT 3,000 pool will drop off, and it will be replaced by an HTT 8,000 with near zero deposits, and then people will deposit. So probably the APR on that will start very high and then come down with others, to get that. And so that means that people have to add the liquidity for that to happen, which is through the HTT 8,000s, right? So they're going to have to add liquidity, which means they have to get the 8,000s from somewhere. And so they're either going to buy them off the market or they're going to mint them. And that is why when you look at the actuator vaults, we can see that the 8,000 is now up to 14 million. If we can go by the HTT 7,000s, we would say that somebody's going to try to get it up close to this number, maybe 122 million. The actuator does exist on the market. About 27% of the total final distribution or the supply of the actuator is already in the vaults. I don't know how much will end up here, and I don't know where it's going to come from. It's either going to come from the market. The market's going to buy it off. People will buy it from the market and send the price up potentially of the ACTR token, and or they're going to swap. They're going to rotate out of these other ones. Maybe they'll rotate out of the 3,000s or 25 million. Maybe we'll see a haircut on these, or they're going to continue to provide LP and get the new emissions and put the actuator in them. Now, mathematically, I can't tell you how valuable the ACTR token is. It's not something that's priceable in my mind, right? Why is that? Because the actuator token is how you earn the HTT fees, and so in terms of units, it pays, but it pays forever. For as long as people mint, it pays forever, and so I don't know how you price that. It's got like infinite upside, and so if it's paying out hexes in the form of HTTs because people have them in vaults, what's the value? So all we really can do is go by what the market has done and how it's valued the token at this time, and so either people won't value HTTs coming through the vault, or they will, one or the other, right? Maybe in between. And that will affect the price. And that's why I call this a high risk, high reward. So people who are farming and actually getting ACTR token, if you treat it like a reward token, then of course you're selling it and you're getting your value, right? So you're at least no risk in that way. You know what the current prices are, you get it in and out. But if you're going to hold on to it, that's a high risk, high reward play. High risk because we don't know what's going to happen with the price. High reward because if what I think is going to happen with this bond market happens, there's going to be a lot of HTTs being minted, and a lot of HTTs being minted means I want actuator, and so do some other people. Let's take a look. Hex related tokens that are out there. So you see the hell goes up 11% in the last 24 hours. That's pretty cool. Hedron up 8%. Deci about 8%. Communis 3%. Maxi 7.68%. Look at our packaged products. We can compare these to what we're doing with the HTTs. We call them a packaged product rather than a bond because they're different than HTTs in a lot of different ways. But with HTTs, a little bit more flexible, and of course you can create more every day, remove more every day from the market by retiring, etc. But Deci and Maxi have set quantities out there right now. Deci, for comparison, estimated return on investment for swapping into Deci today, 117%. So right up there. Maxi, 125%. Still 6 years left on the Deci and 11 years on the Maxi. My estimated payout is 2.39 hex for Deci and 3.09 for Maxi. So that means if you hold one Deci, I think the estimated payout is 2.39 hex. And for the Maxi, 3.09 hex. And so from that, we can create both ROI and APR. And so this rivals, of course, what we're doing with the HTTs, but they're limited in that there's only so many and you can't make more. So it's not like you can bring the price down unless you just sell into the market what you've already had. But for the people that I know that have Deci and Maxi, they don't want to sell it. So at least not now. So they're just holding on to it. So it makes liquidity thin. And as we know, thin liquidity is means volatility, high volatility. All right, take a look at the mirror multiples for this ecosystem. Here, see what these look like. It just gives you an indication of the best way to get into the different tokens that are out here. Nearly in every case, I think in every case right now, coming in with fresh capital because prices are so depressed are the best buys. So if I wanted to take position in PHEX, for instance, coming in with a stable makes the most sense, gets me the biggest bang at 0.30 mirror multiple, which is super low, guys. Like super low. 0.8, anything below 0.8 is really good. 0.30 is crazy. Sometimes we see these go the other way, and then you can look and say, okay, well, if I had other tokens, what other tokens would make the most sense to swap in if I was doing that? And PulseX, because it's had a good run, ratio wise, is the next one up, but it's like half the impact of 0.65. Now I won't go into too much detail of the whole mirror multiple, but there is a write up here about it, and it's just really comparing the 200-day moving average, right, and being able to pick times for when it might be good to swap in or swap out. Everything looks like a buy right now and not a sell, but people are going to do what they're going to do. As DeFi, taking a look at the benchmarks, nice little rainbow chart up here. We can just see, again, this is my creation, so I've kind of stuck with the 5% convergence just so I can kind of get an idea of what's happening over time, because I really know what the market thinks. I have to observe the market. Like I don't know that any of these numbers are exactly correct, but we have seen the 8,000s come down to 0.47, a little bit below the 7,900. That probably makes sense. That's the way the benchmark is. The price itself is down to 0.53. Something looks very similar to 7,000s and 8,000. I mean the 7,900 and the 7,000s, pretty close. You can see we're beginning to see a development of the curve with the HTT 2880s, 2910, 2940, etc. What's interesting about these nodes is they're all going to be really close to HEX, right? Because they're getting closer and closer to that date. So the ratio should be pretty close. It'll be interesting to watch and see if we see trading develop around those nodes. I mean, that's 120 days. Before this is 30 days, before 60 days, before 90 days, before 3,000, 120 days. So it's, quite a bit of time before HTT 3000 redemption. And so they'll all have their own redemption events in advance. Let's take a look at the Actuator. So we've got 271 million now in the Actuator Vaults. Still, the leader's still 7,000, and 8,000's climbing the chart. We can see a list of total mints over the last 24 hours, something about 2.7 million. And what is the leading mint? Look at this a little closer. Looks like Quattro Cinco was the leading mint at 731,000, followed by 3,000, 558,000, and 8,000, 344,000. So you see a lot of activity taking place along different HTTs for different reasons. Obviously looking at this, I don't know why people are doing each. I think the 3,000 was probably the example from Johnny, people following that up and learning as they go themselves, right? I'm guessing with HTT Quattro Cinco, somebody liked it. They liked that number, or it's close to a date. 8,000's a good amplification point. 6,000 is a good amplification point. So yeah, I mean, some different things happening with the market there. Just looking overall at the prices and what we're seeing. Let's see if we can see anything obvious time travel wise or otherwise. All right, the ones that pop up are the ones we talked about earlier, the 6,000s, and we have the answer about the Quattro Cinco. The 6,000's expensive, right? So that's the one that we showed up as amplification. The Quattro Cinco, cheap. Okay, so what happened there? Probably somebody amplified. That's what I'm guessing. Remember, we saw those mints? So somebody probably minted those and sold them, and now they're cheap. And so now they give somebody else an opportunity to buy those up because a fixed ROI of 93% going out to day 5555 is pretty good. A fixed APR about 10%. It's a pretty high percentage point. Not as high as, of course, the 3,000s. We can see, let's move this up a little bit. So let's see what we got. Let's look at prices, native price in HEX terms. Okay, so 0.52 for the 8,000. So the 8,000, you can still mint 8,000 and time travel to 7,900, 7777. right? And in other words, you can get units at 8,000 and get more units by moving up, even though, 7,900 is only 100 days. I'm not sure if I can do this math. 223 days on the 777s, pretty close to the 7,000s, but you lose a little bit of steam. You could move into the 6666 as long as the liquidity lasts. You could also get into the Quattro Cincos, which were discounted. So you can go all the way to Quattro Cinco, from 8,000 to Quattro Cinco, and get about the same units for a $50 trade. All right. And now, again, for those of you who just catching on to this stuff, I'm not saying that $50 trade is great. I'm just saying that's a safe swap, to get into this, because it's a very small amount of the liquidity. But I imagine, what does that look like when we're not talking about $50? We're talking about $5,000. How do you feel about that? Because a lot of us might not be interested in pulling the trigger on $50, though I do that sometimes, right? But yeah, you get the idea, right? Like, why? But at 100x, man, that's not $50, right? 10 times 50 is 500. 100 times 50 is 5,000. And so if the safe swap is $5,000, it changes the game entirely. And so, again, getting these nodes set up in advance probably made a lot of sense. A lot of sense to have those ready. All right, so we see those time travel trades. You also have the 7,000s, which have a little bit deeper liquidity. They can go to 6666. They can go also to 5555. And sometimes people will, you have to be careful with slippage and price impact and all that. But sometimes people just move because they have a different preference in time that's out there. If we look at the lower end of the curve here, we could see the 2970 developing. Liquidity came up pretty good, probably because of the price change in HEX, but $727 there. Again, small liquidity, but think 100x. 2940, 650, 2910, 651, 674. These all probably they probably look cheap to me. I'm thinking that they're a little bit cheap. Probably should all be closer to one to one. Like the 2880 looks like it's about right, about 0.94. HEX, but again, this is V2, and so they're connected to each other. Whoever set this up, they daisy trained between 3,000, 2970, 2970, 2940, 2910, blah blah blah. They're attached to HTT 3000, and so if 3000 is moving around, these are moving around as well. So you have that going on. All right, I think we're almost to the end. See if we have any questions. Just some observations on what's out here. So just chartages. We don't need those. And then this is our T-share rate and how it's been going up. Again, we're about 6 years in, give or take a little bit, right? 6. Yeah, 6.5 years in. So about 6.5 years in, what I would say is a 15-year cycle. Got another 4 years going out into 2030. And, I've covered this a lot, but the slope on this increase in share rate does not change until we get into 2030. Then it starts to flatten out. Why is that? Because we have all these old stakes that were made that haven't ended yet, and they're going to change the share rate, and they are changing the share rate. And that's going to continue, but at a faster rate than it will in the future. So we're looking at, over the next 4 years, a 40% increase in T-shares in cost and HEX. So 40% over the next 4 years. So getting them cheaper now is a pretty good deal. If you are interested in HEX mining, HEX staking, and T-shares, right? Not financial advice. But, and people say, well, Crispy, people are going to get really interested in HEX later, so don't worry about it. And then I think to myself, well, at all-time high, at all-time high prices of 55-cent HEX, let's think about that. 55 times 65,000 HEX per T-share. So let's say we ever that's what happens, and we get out into 2029, and then a T-share is $35,000. So $35,000 in fiat. That is 90 almost probably you probably could argue 97% of the population is not going to be able to afford a T-shirt if that was to happen, right? I mean, who's buying a $35,000 T-shirt at that point, right? I mean, people will, but they're not going to be buying full ones. They're going to be buying B shares, right? That's what will end up happening in M shares when that happens. So billions of shares and millions of shares rather than trillions. And so this is the opportunity now, if you believe in that kind of a future, to get the T-shirts with another chance. I mean, they're so cheap, right? Relatively. In fact, I'd argue they're so cheap that it's coffee money cheap. And it's well worth, in my opinion, high risk, high reward, right? High risk that nothing happens. This just all fails, right? But high reward, if not, it goes to 55 cents. Crazy, crazy games. All right, and then you would basically have a money printer that's printing you dollars, where other people won't be able to get in the future. So from a competition perspective, let's look at this share rate changes that have come through. We did just see a couple changes yesterday. Well, the 13th. I'll have to check this, see if this is working the way it should. But you can see we have these little short stakes. They're making little tiny moves, right? But the long stakes, like this one was out there for 23.89, increased 96 expectation. All right. Let's see if we have anything in the chat to answer before we close out. No, I don't see anything out there. I see Joe was the last comment. Let's see. We got Duke of Booze. Good to see you. And that's it. That's all she wrote, man. HEX bond market. We're ready for another day. You guys follow this and see what's what. If you have any questions, check it out. The show notes, there are plenty of links in there to all this stuff. You go take a look. I would recommend taking a look at the documents if you haven't. Even drop them in AI. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, you can't consume it yourself. I mean, there's a lot of documents. Go drop them in into AI. See what AI says about all this. Next week, late next week, I'm expecting C3 Works come on the channel. We'll do an interview. Maybe we'll do a panel. If anybody's interested in doing that, we can do that. Maybe somebody like Tam will come, because we'd like to have her on a panel. It'd be voice only. And you just have some exposure to the community. So if you're interested in that type of stream, let me know. I'm looking for 2 people to join them. And we'll have a 4-person panel. And with that, we're out. We'll see you at the next one, maybe tomorrow. And then we'll do the T-share report. So with that, let's go ahead and close out. Thanks, everybody. Like, share, and we'll see you next time. You guys stay crispy, bro.
Yo, T, urgent HEX buy signal. Charts flaming hot.
Golden ratio, huh? That's how legends stack T-shares.
Get them while they're crispy, folks. This window won't stay open long.
Stake smart. Win big. Time rewards those who act.
Stay crispy, Hexicans.
You gotta move it, move it! Feel the rhythm of the blockchain.